Hello everyone and welcome to our discussions on international relations. International relations. Today I'll be discussing national interest. So let's start with a brief introduction of national interest. This has been a key component in international relations because nations always act and react for satisfying their goals of national interest, and this also forms the very basis for foreign policy. The conduct of foreign policy by a nation is governed by its considerations of national interest, and the behavior of a state is justified by its national interest. And if we go by words of Morgenthau, he asserts that it is not only a political necessity but also a moral duty of a nation to follow in its dealing with other nations one guiding star, one standard for thought, one rule of action, and that is the national interest. So he accepts national interest as the basis of a rational foreign policy formulation, and he defines it in terms of national power. So he conceptualizes national interest in an abstract and imprecise way and justifies it on the ground that since politics isn't finite, precise, and clearly observable, hence political concepts like national interest are bound to be vague and imprecise. Let us now take up its classification. So, a six-word classification is provided by Thomas W. Robinson, and we'll be discussing that only. First is the primary interest. As it sounds primary, these are the interests which no nation can compromise upon. For example, physical, political, and cultural identity against possible encroachments by other states. Secondary interests, these are the interests which are vital for our for existence of the states, and these includes protection of citizens abroad and diplomatic immunities. Third is permanent interest. Permanent interests are long term interests and these are subject to very slow change. Fourth is variable interest. These are largely determined by the cross current of personalities, public opinions, sectional interests, partisan politics, and political and moral focus. Next is general interest. These are those positive conditions which apply to large number of nations or in several specified fields. For example, you can say economics, trade, and diplomatic relations. The sixth one is specific interest. So these are the logical outgrowths of general interest, and these are defined in terms of time and space, and that is why these are termed as specific interest. Beside this six-fold classification, Robinson discusses three more, and they are the identical interest, that is common to a large number of states, complementary interests, these are the interests that are not identical, but these can form basis of agreement over a specific issue and hence termed as complementary interests. Conflicting interests, as it sounds, that is which is neither of them and a conflict is there. Here you see methods for promotion of national interest. To secure goals and interests of national interest, nations employ following popular methods of achieving it, and they are diplomacy, propaganda, economic aids and loans, alliances and treaties, and the last is coercive means. Now, diplomacy is the most favored and universally accepted means of securing goals of national interest, while propaganda is the art of salesmanship. Economic aid and loans becomes the necessity of poor or underdeveloped states to rely on rich states as they are dependent on developed states. Alliances and treaties for securing identical and complementary interests, whereas coercive methods involves use of force or use of threat of force and power for securing interests. Nations uses these according to the suitability of time and need, and however, in the interest of international peace, security and prosperity, it is desired by states to refrain from using coercive means. Now let us take up multiple choice question part, and the first question for today is dash interests are the logical outgrowths of general interests, and these are defined in terms of time and space. So the correct answer here is specific interest, and specific interests are the logical outgrowths of general interests. The second question is Robinson has classified dash numbers of national interest. So he has presented a six-fold classification of national interest. First, primary interest, secondary interest, permanent interest, variable interest, fifth, general interest, and sixth one is specific interest. So they are six in numbers. Third is which among the following is not a method of national interest? So, diplomacy, alliances, and treaties and propaganda all falls under the method of national interest. Art of war isn't a correct option here, and the five popular method of national interest are diplomacy, propaganda, economic aids and loans, alliances and treaties, and coercive means. Fourth question is dash method involves use of force and power for securing interests. So its coercive method involves use of force and power for securing interests. Intervention, non-intercourse, embargoes, boycotts, reprisals, retortion, retaliation, severance of relations, and pacific blockades. These are the popular coercive methods which are used by nations to force others to accept a particular course of behavior or to refrain from a course which is considered harmful by the nations using it. So these are generally avoided to secure international peace, order, and stability. The fifth and the last question for today is interests that are long term and are subject to slow change. Dash. So, permanent interests refer to the relatively constant long term interests of the states, and these are subject to slow changes. For example, you can take American interests to preserve its influence and to maintain freedom of navigation in all the ocean is its permanent interest.